The clipboard is still on the counter. That's what Ranger Castellano noticed first when he came back to the station at 2:17 p.m. Not the heat, he'd stopped feeling that years ago, not the silence. Death Valley's backcountry is always silent, just the clipboard. The permit form, blank, unsigned. Sitting exactly where he'd left it that morning, in exactly the condition it was in before a group of young women walked up, looked at it, and kept walking. It was 107 degrees Fahrenheit at 8:47 a.m. when they arrived. By early afternoon, the thermometer would push past 120 degrees Fahrenheit, a temperature Death Valley reaches with quiet regularity every July. In 2021, the park recorded 130 degrees Fahrenheit, the highest reliably measured air temperature ever recorded on Earth. This wasn't an unusual day, this was just Tuesday. Ranger Marcus Castellano has worked for the National Park Service for 12 years. In that time, he has personally assisted in 7 heat-related rescues in Death Valley's backcountry. 7 times he has found people who went in confident and came out broken or didn't come out at all. He knows what overconfidence looks like in this desert. He recognized it immediately. He remembers the group leader clearly. Late 20s, wearing a matching branded athletic set, phone already out and recording before she'd even stepped out of the car. She glanced at the permit form on the clipboard, the single required step before entering the backcountry, and laughed. Not nervously, genuinely. "We're just going for content," she said. And here's the question that should stop you cold. Why does a permit matter if you're only going a few miles in? It's a form, a bureaucratic checkbox. What could a piece of paper possibly do that sunscreen in a water bottle can't? That answer is coming, and it's not what you'd expect. What Castellano said to them before they left, the specific words he used, the specific warning he gave, will come back to that. Because those words matter more than almost anything else in this story. But right now, picture the permit station at 2:17 p.m. The heat pressing down like something physical. The clipboard on the counter, the form still blank, and somewhere miles out in that desert, no one knowing where to look. Their names were Mara, Derek, Jess, and Priya. 4 friends, mid to late 20s, who had met in college and stayed close through the particular glue of group chats and shared content aesthetics. Between Mara and Jess alone, their Instagram and TikTok accounts carried a combined following of just under 90,000 people. That number mattered to them. It shaped how they planned things. 3 days before they drove to Death Valley, Mara posted to her Instagram stories, "Death Valley content drop incoming." The caption sat over a flat lay shot of gear arranged on her apartment bed. It got 2,300 views. Comments flooded in. Obsessed. Iconic. Take me with you. The post looked like an adventure. What it actually was, an itinerary built entirely around a single golden hour canyon shot, is a completely different thing entirely. Look at what was in that flat lay. 4 matching 32-ounce water bottles, 1 per person. A ring light, a portable Bluetooth speaker. Trail running shoes, not boots. The National Park Service recommends a minimum of 1 liter of water per person per hour when temperatures exceed 100 degrees Fahrenheit. At 120 degrees Fahrenheit, experienced desert guides pushed that figure closer to 1.5 liters. Mara's group had packed enough water for roughly 2 hours of moderate hiking. They were planning to be out for most of the day. Mara had hiked in the desert before twice, actually, both trips under 5 miles, both in temperatures that stayed below 95 degrees Fahrenheit. She had a brand partnership with an outdoor apparel company, which gave the trip a professional sheen. The matching gear, the clean aesthetic, the sense that preparation had happened even when it hadn't. But here's where the first crack appeared, and it's a small one, easy to miss, which is exactly why it matters. The night before the drive, Derek Googled it. Sitting in the back seat of Mara's car at a gas station somewhere outside Barstow, he pulled up the NPS website on his phone. Death Valley Backcountry Permit Requirements. He read it. He said something. "Hey, do we need a permit for this?" Mara didn't pause. "That's for, like, serious expeditions." Derek put his phone away. That exchange lasted maybe 15 seconds. Nobody recorded it, nobody posted it. But it was the last real moment when this trip could have quietly, undramatically become something else. A different plan, a day hike, a drive-through, and photograph kind of visit. NPS records covering 2010 to 2023 show that over 60% of heat-related fatalities in Death Valley involved visitors who neither registered their route nor carried adequate water. Mara's group had already failed both conditions before they left the parking lot, so the next morning they drove to the trailhead, and that's where they met Ranger Castellano and where the last real chance to change the outcome was handed to them and refused. Castellano was at the kiosk at 9:15 a.m. when they pulled in. He'd been there since 6, logging temperatures, checking the water cache at the trail junction, doing the quiet maintenance work that keeps a desert station running. The air already felt like standing inside something. 109 degrees, and the day had barely started. He remembers watching them get out of the car. The phones came out before the doors were fully open. The permit process at Death Valley's backcountry stations takes approximately 8 minutes. You write down your names, your planned route, your expected return time, your water supply, your emergency contact. That's it. 8 minutes, and the National Park Service has a record that you exist in that desert. And if you don't come back, Search and Rescue knows exactly where to begin looking. 8 minutes is the difference between a confirmed last known location and nothing. Castellano walked through it with them anyway. He told them the temperature was 109 degrees Fahrenheit and still climbing toward a forecast high of 122 degrees Fahrenheit. He looked at their water, 4 32-ounce bottles and 2 16-ounce bottles between 4 people. He did the math out loud, approximately 3.5 liters total. The National Park Service recommendation for Death Valley summer hiking is 1 liter per person per hour. For a 4-hour round trip in this heat, the group needed at least 16 liters. They were carrying less than a quarter of that. He told them this, specifically, with numbers. Then he told them the other thing, the thing that had been planted in this story from the very beginning. He told them that Search and Rescue cannot prioritize finding unpermitted hikers because without a permit, there is no confirmed last known location, no route on file, no expected return time logged anywhere in the system. Without a permit, you are not in the system. And if you are not in the system and something goes wrong out there, no one knows where to start. Mara was filming the whole time. She posted a clip of Castellano mid-warning to her Instagram stories within minutes of walking away from the kiosk. The caption read, "The ranger really tried to stop us, laugh out loud." Sit with that for a second. A man with 12 years of desert experience who has personally assisted in 7 backcountry rescues is explaining with specific numbers, specific consequences, exactly how this trip could kill them. And the group processed that as content, as a funny moment for the feed. The warning didn't register as information. It registered as texture. They did not sign the permit, they did not log their route, they did not write down a single name. At 9:31 a.m., they crossed past the station and into the backcountry. The clipboard stayed on the counter, blank. And the desert, which does not negotiate and does not care about follower counts, was already waiting 122 degrees Fahrenheit and climbing, with 6 hours of direct sun still ahead. The first mile feels manageable. That's the cruelest part. At 9:31 a.m., the air temperature was 109 degrees Fahrenheit and still climbing. The trail, if you can call it that, because backcountry in Death Valley is less a path and more a direction, stretched out ahead of them across pale, cracked earth that seemed to absorb the sun and give it back doubled. The ground radiates. That's not a metaphor. In direct July sun, surface temperatures in Death Valley's basin regularly exceed 150 degrees Fahrenheit. Thin-soled trail runners, the kind built for aesthetics and Instagram flats, offer almost no insulation from that. Every step is conducted on a surface hotter than boiling water, but the first mile feels manageable. The body hasn't caught up yet. Here's what's happening inside, even when everything outside seems fine. The human body begins to struggle with core temperature regulation around 104 degrees Fahrenheit internal temperature. At 106 degrees Fahrenheit, heat stroke begins. Above 108 degrees Fahrenheit, organ systems face serious risk. In 120 degrees Fahrenheit ambient heat, with direct sun exposure and inadequate water, a person engaged in moderate exertion can reach dangerous internal temperatures within 90 minutes, not hours. 90 minutes. The group had been moving for less than that when the water situation became critical. By 11 a.m., roughly 90 minutes after they crossed the station, they had covered approximately 2.3 miles. 3 of the 4 32-ounce bottles were gone. Think about that number for a moment. 3 of 4 bottles consumed across 4 people in 90 minutes. That's not reckless drinking. That's the desert taking what it needs. They stopped in a patch of partial shade near a dry wash. Jess sat down immediately. Priya poured the last of 1 bottle over her wrists. Derek checked his phone. No signal, which he already knew. But the check was reflexive. The kind of thing you do when you need something to do with your hands. And then Derek said what needed to be said. He wanted to turn back. Mara wanted the canyon. The shot they'd driven 6 hours for was still ahead, a narrow slot canyon that caught the light in a particular way in the late morning, the kind of image that performs. She'd seen it on another creator's feed 3 months earlier and built this entire trip around replicating it. They were close, maybe another mile and a half. What happened next took probably 4 minutes. It didn't feel like a catastrophic decision. It felt like a disagreement between friends that got resolved the way group disagreements usually get resolved. Imperfectly, with someone giving in and someone pressing forward. Derek and Priya turned back. Mara and Jess continued toward the canyon. That split, right there, at mile 2.3, at 11 in the morning, with 1 bottle of water left between 4 people, is the moment this story stops being 1 crisis and becomes 4. Think about what you would have done in Derek's position. You're exhausted. The heat is unlike anything you felt. You want to go back, but your friend is already walking away. Do you follow? Do you insist? What does it take to hold a line when the social pressure is pointing the other direction? The 2 who turned back never made it back. Without a marked trail, without GPS coordinates saved, they had relied on cell service that didn't exist out here. The heat shimmer swallowed the landscape into something unrecognizable. Every pale ridge looks like every other pale ridge. Every dry wash leads somewhere, but not necessarily back. The 2 who pushed forward reached the canyon, but there was no water left. All 4 were now stranded, separated, and completely invisible to the outside world. Back at the trailhead, the clipboard sat on the counter, blank, and the people who might have noticed they were overdue had no idea they'd ever gone in. Here's the thing that makes this worse, and this is the part most people never consider. The NPS search and rescue team covering Death Valley is not large. In the summer of 2022, the park operated with a Backcountry SAR unit of fewer than a dozen trained responders covering those 3.4 million acres. Every unpermitted search doesn't just risk the missing, it pulls those responders away from other emergencies already in progress. The cost of 1 unsigned form ripples outward in ways that are almost impossible to calculate. If you've ever wondered why rangers take the permit process so seriously, that's why. It's not bureaucracy, it's triage. The families weren't worried yet. That's the part that's hardest to sit with. Back home, in the group chat that had been quiet all day, no one had sent a single message of concern. The trip was framed as an overnight. Mara had said they'd check in the next morning. So when the afternoon passed in silence, and then the early evening, nobody panicked. Nobody called. The silence was expected. It was Mara's mother who finally dialed the park at 7:04 p.m. Not because she sensed something wrong, because she wanted to confirm the check-in plan for the morning. A routine call, the kind a mother makes. The ranger who answered asked the standard question. Do they have a permit on file? No. Do you have a route? No. A planned destination? No. What she had was 4 names and the name of a trailhead in a park that covers 3.4 million acres, roughly the size of Connecticut. That is almost nothing. Imagine being handed a single push pin and told to find 4 people somewhere in the state of Connecticut in the dark after the hottest day of the year. That's not a search, that's a prayer. NPS Search and Rescue was formally notified at 7:31 p.m. The first and most critical question SAR asks when activating a missing person's response is, do they have a permit on file? A permit gives SAR a logged route, a planned destination, an expected return time, a water supply declaration, and an emergency contact who has been pre-briefed on the specific trail. It gives them a starting coordinate. Without one, SAR operates in the dark, literally in this case, because by 7:31 p.m., the desert had dropped into the kind of blackness that makes backcountry navigation genuinely dangerous. The decision was made to deploy at first light. That decision wasn't negligence. Night searches in Death Valley's backcountry carry serious risks for the rescue teams themselves, uneven terrain, flash flood channels, the same disorienting sameness that had already swallowed Mara's group. Protocol exists for a reason. But protocol means the group spent the night in that desert, and by 7:31 p.m., they had already been there for 10 hours. If you're finding this story as unsettling as it should be, consider subscribing. This channel covers exactly these kinds of cases, the ones where small decisions compound into something irreversible. And if this video has already made you think twice about something, a like helps more people find it. The backcountry permit form that sat unsigned on Ranger Castellano's clipboard was not red tape. It was not a bureaucratic formality designed by people who'd never been in a desert. It was a dead man's switch. Here's how it works. You file the permit, you come back, nothing happens. The form gets archived, nobody calls. The system stays quiet. But if you file it and you don't come back, if your expected return time passes and no one has checked out, the system activates. Search and rescue gets a logged route, a planned destination, a water supply declaration, a starting coordinate. The difference between a search that begins at mile marker 2 and a search that begins with a push pin dropped somewhere in 3.4 million acres. That's the whole mechanism. That's all it is. 8 minutes of paperwork that converts your absence from a silence into an alarm. Mara's group disabled it, not accidentally. They looked at it, heard what it was for, and kept walking. The permit process at Death Valley's backcountry stations was designed specifically because this park has a documented history, decades long, of confident, underprepared visitors dying in its interior. The National Park Service didn't build the system to slow people down. They built it because the desert kept killing people who were certain they didn't need it. The permit exists to do 4 things: confirm you know where you're going, confirm you're carrying enough water, log a return time so your absence triggers a response, and give search and rescue somewhere to start. It is not a checkpoint. It is the last door. Some people walk through it, some people wave it off. Death Valley does not distinguish between the two. What Castellano said to them that morning, the full weight of it, was never about authority. He wasn't protecting a rule. He was standing at that kiosk at 109 degrees Fahrenheit, doing the math on 432-ounce bottles and a forecast high of 122 degrees Fahrenheit, and telling them something he had already told other people in other summers, some of whom came back and some of whom didn't. He has worked that station for 12 years. He has seen the confident group before. The phones out before the car doors close, the laugh, we're just going for content. He recognized it because it has a shape, and the shape is always the same, and he knows what the desert does with it. His warning wasn't a formality either. It was the distilled knowledge of 7 rescues, delivered in the last place it could do any good. They filmed it and posted it as a funny moment. The desert doesn't negotiate with content schedules. It doesn't make exceptions for people who meant well or who didn't think the rules applied to them, or who had 90,000 followers and a brand partnership and a shot they'd driven 6 hours to get. What it does, with a consistency that is neither cruel nor kind, just absolute, is close the gap between confidence and preparation. Every time, without variation. The temperature doesn't check your intentions before it climbs past 120 degrees Fahrenheit. The terrain doesn't care that you've hiked before. The silence that swallows a group of 4 people into 3.4 million acres of pale, shimmering earth doesn't care that someone back home is expecting a check-in call in the morning. The form was on the counter, the pen was right there. That's the only story here that matters. Castellano said it that morning, before they walked away, before the clipboard stayed blank, before the desert got what the desert always gets when preparation stops at aesthetics. He said it quietly, the way a man says something he's said before and knows he'll say again. The desert doesn't care why you didn't sign it. And here's what that sentence actually means, the part that connects back to that blank clipboard, to that 8:47 in the morning arrival, to that laugh at the permit station. The desert doesn't care about your follower count. It doesn't care about the canyon shot. It doesn't care that Castellano warned you with specific numbers and 12 years of hard knowledge. What the permit does, what that 8-minute form does, is care on your behalf, automatically, when you're no longer in a position to care for yourself. It is the one system in that entire desert that is designed to work precisely when everything else has already gone wrong. Mara's group had 90,000 people watching. Not one of them knew where to look.